Okay, good morning. We are starting Shin Chaf Bet. Din Nolad b'Shabbos. Okay, so Aleph. Beitza shenoda b'Shabbos, asura afilu l'taltala. There's an egg that was laid on Shabbos. It's asur because of muksa, you can't move it. V'afilu nit'arva be'elef kulan asurat. And even if this one egg that was laid on Shabbos gets mixed up with 1,000 other eggs, all of them are asur. V'yachol lakof alei kli shelo tishaver. You can put some kind of a vessel, a bucket, any kind of a kli over it, so no one steps on it, doesn't break. Ubilvad shelo yigaba. But you cannot touch the egg itself. Why can't you touch the egg? Because when you touch the egg, it's a ball, it's a sphere. So by definition, it will move if you just touch it. Normally muksa you're allowed to touch as long as you don't move it. So here okay. So that's the issue. It's asur for Nolad. Well, in other words, it was born. It was laid, and it's asur on Shabbos, right? Because of muksa. Because you had no intention to use it. It wasn't usable, and aval biyom. Is it discussed on the bottom or only on top? Yeah. So let's read the next one. Bet. Shabbat shela'achar Yom Tov o lefanav. Shabbos, which is on before or after Yom Tov. So noda bazeh, asura bazeh. Because the two are connected, when Ben Hashmasha sets in for the second day, since it was muksa the first day, it'll automatically be muksa the next day. Bir Halacha points out, if you have in Chutz La'aretz it's a 2-day Yom Tov, so then it wouldn't be a problem if it's 2 days apart. Because one of the days is a suffix. So mimanashach. Let's say it's, for example, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, for us who remember. So if Yom Tov is Thursday, and then that's when the egg was laid, so then Friday for sure, so either really only one day. So if it's Thursday is the real Yom Tov, and Friday's achol. So there's no connection. When Shbein Hashmashos of Shabbos sets in, it was totally mutter. And if the real day was really Friday, then Thursday was really nothing. That was Erev Shabbos, and that's also not a problem. The exception would be Rosh Hashanah, because we hold l'chumra that it has the 2-day Rosh Hashanah has the din of 1 day. Right? It's not midaraisa, that the concept midarabanan we consider it like so. Midarabanan it's muksa. Okay. Gimel. Pirot shenashru mina ilan b'Shabbos. So if you have fruit that falls down from a tree on Shabbos, asurim bo bayom vela erev mutarim miyad. So if you have fruit that falls down from a tree on Shabbos, you see it fall down on Shabbos, it's asur that day, because when Ben Hashmashat set in, you couldn't use the fruit, you had no intention to use it, it was muksa, and it wasn't usable, so it was muksa. But then, as soon as Shabbos is over, there's no reason why you can't use it right away. So there's actually 2 reasons why it's asur. The main reason why the Gemara says in the beginning of Beitzah, it has to do with why Beitzah is asur. But anyways, in that sugya, but the main issue here, the main issue is really, whenever there's a gzera, whenever there's a fruit that falls to the floor, you're not allowed to pick it up on Shabbos, or on Yom Tov, because it's a takana. If you pick up a fruit on the floor from a tree, you might come to pick another fruit that's actually on the tree. So it's really a gzera of tolesh. It might come to tolesh, and memela it's also muksa. So those are 2 reasons. Okay, Mishnah Berurah points out, if you have a suffix and you don't know when it fell down from a tree, you don't know if it fell down on Friday or fell down on Shabbos. So he says you have to be machmer, because it's a suffix muksa, and it's davar sheish lo matirin. Once Shabbos ends, it'll be mutter. So you have to wait. Unless, of course, you see it and it looks like it's been there for a while. So then I was told it's okay, because you can assume, if you have a good reason to assume it fell before Shabbos, very good reason, then you can rely on that. But otherwise, if there's no way to know, you have to be machmer. Okay. Dalet. Ochle behema ein bahem mishum tikun kli. So food of an animal, it's also food for a people, the same halacha. It doesn't have, there's no din of tikkun kli. Since it's food, we don't say that adjusting the food or doing something with the food turns it into a kli. Let's see. Lefichach, mutar liktom afilu b'sakin, kash o tevin, v'lachtzotz bo shinav. If you have food for an animal, and you can cut off a piece of that food, I don't know if a pretzel would work, but you can take a knife, and you can fix the food a little bit with a knife, and use it as a toothpick. Not a problem.
You can cut food into shapes, right?
Yes, you can. There's no din of cutting shapes exactly. So you're allowed to take fruit. I don't think it applies. Ask a shaila to the rind, to the yellow, to the green part of the watermelon, because that's not edible. But that's a good question. But the fruit itself, 100%, you're allowed to cut it into balls or cut it into shapes and etc. Words is a separate issue, or not. But as far as shapes, it's not a problem.
But you wouldn't be able to necessarily use a ball tool to ball out the melon?
A ball tool, I don't see a problem with it.
No problem?
I cannot see. Can't think of a problem with a ball tool.
Thank you.
Aval kesam. One second. Okay. But to make just to clarify, to make a permanent kli would be asa. We're talking about food that's not going to last, and it's not something. But if you're going to take something, even if it is edible for an animal or person, and you make a permanent, I don't know, stick, whatever you're going to make, a permanent basket out of. You cannot. Can you carve a pumpkin if it's edible?
Meaning in the Goyish Yisrael, they carve pumpkins, they don't eat it, and they go ahead and they...
Oh, okay, so if you're making a...
They put candles in it, so on and so forth. That's a perfect example, just trying to help.
Okay, to me this thought about, if it's food, you're allowed to, as long as it's not permanent. So that's a good question. What's permanent for a pumpkin? Very good question. Aval kesam, she'ena ochel behema, but if you have a twig that's not edible, if then you can't carve it out. If you have just a twig from the floor, then that making a kli. And also it's not food, and it's muksa if it's just a twig from the floor. Okay. Mishnah Berurah says even for kavod abrios it could be a problem. If you had it from Erev Shabbos, because you should have prepared it for yourself on Erev Shabbos. I don't know. He says if you have a situation of kavod abrios and you didn't have that twig or any way to make a twig, so then perhaps you can do that on Shabbos itself. Okay. Hey, mutar l'tautel atze b'samim lahariach behem ulahanif behem l'chola. So here you have, let's say, hadassah or some kind of a tree, or I don't know, cinnamon sticks. You have some kind of atze b'samim, and you want to use it to smell. So you're allowed to. It's not a problem. And not only for a chola. They say, Mishnah Berurah, others say it's lav davka. It's whether if it's for a sick person or not a sick person. There's nothing wrong about it. It's not muksa, because it has a purpose to smell. And you're allowed to rub it in order to get the smell out. Echad kashim ve'echad rakim. It doesn't matter if it's hard or soft. You're allowed to do that. And even to chip off the tip of it or to crack it, that's also mutter. Mishnah Berurah points out only biyad but not bakli. You can't use a kli to do that.
And the issue is that you're being molded a smell?
So they're saying there's no problem. That could be, I guess, the reason why you might think it's asur, but it's not a problem. Okay. The smell's already there, and you're not making a smell. Okay. And there could be issues of making a smell on begadim, but they weren't gozer by using the actual smell, the source itself. That's mutter to use. Vav. Hamachalik l'bnei beito manot b'Shabbos yachol. Okay, this is a little bit of a confusing Shulchan Aruch, and there's actually a couple different ways of reading, or two different components. If you look in the Gemara, and the Shulchan Aruch put a little bit together. So let's read. Mechalik libnei beito manat b'Shabbos. So you have at the table. Now it's lav dafka your children. It could be your guests. Okay, it could be your children, your guests are at your table, and you want to pass out pieces of meat for everybody to eat. So yachol lahatil goral. You're allowed to make some kind of a lottery where each piece of meat has like a number, whatever kilo, however you want to make the lottery, and based on who you pick from the lottery, each one is going to get their piece. Lomar lemishiyete agoral ploni yeh chelak ploni shelo. So that however comes out of the lottery, whatever piece comes out to this person. So it's all random. Okay? V'hu shiyu achalakim shavim. And all the pieces need to be of equal amount. Again, there's two opinions here in the Shulchan Aruch that are quoted. One is Stam Yesh Omrim, we'll get to that one. So here, you have equal pieces for everybody. And it has to be where each piece is equal, and you want basically everyone to get with an equal piece. And why you're doing a lottery, so people don't get jealous. Why is he getting this piece and that piece? Why'd you give him this one? Why'd you give him that one? And I get this one. Okay, so here we see as long as they're equal, you're allowed to make this kind of a lottery. But to do it with other people, now, what is the standard case of acherim when you read the Gemara? It means you have b'nei chabura. The Gemara says you have a group of people, and basically they all pitch in together. They all buy together pieces of big steak, and now some roast, whatever. Now they're cutting it up, and everybody wants. They paid an X amount. They all paid equal, and everybody wants an exactly equal piece. And everyone's makpid. Everyone cares, we're afraid. It's a gzera over here. We're afraid maybe everybody will care. Like I know sometimes they have meat sales, and people buy a meat, a big quantity. And sometimes you can have 2 or 3 people going in on it together. So don't do this goral, or don't divide it up on Shabbos. It's an issur d'Rabbanan of. So we're going to read. So we're going to read in a sec. Well, there's a couple possibilities. Kevan, let's keep reading. Shemakpidin, since they care to get an equal portion. So the main chashash from the Gemara is Makpidin zeh al zeh yavo lidei mida v'mishka. They're going to start taking out their weights or their rulers and start saying it's got to be exactly equal. So there's an issue of measuring, which can lead to writing. But we can assume it's like all one chad gzera. Aval litain mana gedola keneged mana ketana ulahatil goral alehem afilu bnei beito ubchol asr mishum kubya. So then it continues. Now to do this type of a goral, even during the week, and even if the own children is asr, that's if the pieces are completely different. And because if they're basically the same, it's just an issue of people going to start measuring. But here, it's when you're talking about who's going to get really lucky and really unlucky, there's an issue of mesachik bekubya, which is has to do with gambling. So again, that's more of a Yeridea topic, and we'll see over there, it's a machloket, if it is gezel or srach gevel. It looks like gezel, stealing, because there when you're gambling, nobody wants to lose, and everyone thinks they want to think or hopes and assumes, whether it makes sense or not, that they're going to win. So they're not really ready to lose, and therefore when the person takes your money away, it's almost like he's stealing. So again, it's probably just a din d'Rabbanan, and some say it's actually mutter. But anyway, when it comes to here, so here the Shulchan Aruch paskins that it's aser. V'yesh omrim, and he points, but he says yesh omrim. This is the second opinion. Di'im banav u'bnei beito mutar lahatil garal filu al mana gedola keneged mana ketana v'mnei she'ein makpidin. But if you're doing it at home and it's your kids or your guests, no one's makpid who's going to get what. So then then it's okay.
This is just during the week. Right?
This one, well, on Shabbos we're talking about. It's both. You mean when? Who says when it's mutter?
Yeah,
that's only for b'nei beito. But if it be other people, the b'nei chabura that do care, then for sure it's aser on Shabbos. It's a kula by, if it's b'nei beito, you're allowed to do it whether it's big pieces or small pieces, or they're all equal, whether it's equal or not equal. That's the main difference. Haga. V'asur lahatil gorel b'Shabbos afilu aidei ein Yehudi. Now even if you want to come to him to divide it, it's asur to make a gorel on Shabbos even with a non-Jew. So there's two separate issues. Basically one is a gorel, which is a din on Shabbos, so again, you have to see if it applies, but it's a din derabanan, and that's basically because of mida, mishkal might come to writing, and then there's another possibility, again, it depends how you hold in your idea, but the other possibility is masachek bekuvia, similar to gambling, which resembles stealing. Okay. Mishmura points out also if kids chip in, or if everyone cares, so then you're also going to have an issue with, then there's really no difference. The point is, if everyone's buying for somebody else, or everyone is chipping in, and if you're makpid or not. The post can point out, let's say you want to have a raffle on Shabbos. If you're doing it in order to get an aliyah, so then they say it's mutter, because you're not passing anything out, and it's in order for a davar shel mitzvah. Let's say you want to have incentives for kids and have a raffle for kids on Shabbos with learning or whatever it is for a davar mitzvah. So some are mekel and some are machmer. And the Mishnah Berurah points out, especially if you're going to use little notes. You write kids' names on them before Shabbos, and then on Shabbos to do a raffle with these notes. He says that's aser, because it might has to do with the gzera of shtaros, reading shtaros, and it might come to writing, etc. It's all part of that same gzera. Okay. So, different opinions on that one. Let's see. Okay. It's not really the sugya of Goral, but just having a regular lottery done in the city. Just a couple of reasons why some are mekel by that. I'm saying even if you be machmer in your ideya by gambling, some are mekel by a Goral because it's so huge and everyone agrees to it. It's not a group of a few people, and it becomes the minhag olam. So it's more of like a derech of doing a kinyan. So, anyway, some say Dina de Machusa makes it more definitive. But, okay, so some are more mekel when it comes to, and no one really expects to win. So it's, in gambling, people really do it, they have the feeling they expect to win, or they really hope. By a lottery, there's no real expectation, as far as I know. So that's why, another reason why some are mekel, or many are mekel. Shin Chaf Gimel. Dine hashala v'kinyan sorchei Shabbos v'adachas hakelim v'tikunan u'tevilasan b'Shabbos. Okay. Aleph. All right. Okay. So this is about getting ready for. Let's read. Aleph. Mutar l'mar l'chavero maleli klize. You ought to go to your friend, okay, or in a store, and you say, fill up this kli. Mipnei afiluhu miyuchad lemida. Even though what you give him, it has like measurement lines on them. You know exactly how much he's giving you. Don't talk about the measurements. Don't talk about the price. Just tell him, fill me up, and then you'll pay back next after Shabbos. So that's when the guy who's purchasing, the buyer, comes with his kli. He takes the kli from the seller and he takes it home. And certainly if you bring your own kli, in other words, it doesn't matter whose kli you're using, and it doesn't matter that it has measurements on it. Just don't talk about it, and just say fill up the kli, and that's not a problem. Aval limdod bekli miyuchad lemida v'lishpoch b'toch kelav shelokeach aser. Shulchan Aruch writes, but to take a measuring kli, some kind of a spoon or shovel that has actual measurements on it, to take it, measure that specifically and mark it down. Well, you're taking note mentally, and then you put that into the person's bag to take home. That is what is aser. Haga. V'yesh mekilin lomar dekol she'eno mechaven lemida legamrei she'amai temosif ma'at shari. The Haga says, no, there is a mekel opinion. It says, that's only if your mamash care to be exact on the measurement tool. But if you don't care if it's a little bit over, a little bit under, just so you guys have an idea how much he owes you, and you're not being medactic, even though it's a kli for measurement, it's mutter. V'chein haminag pashut limdod b'kli hamiyuchad lemida v'lishpoch lekelav shel lokeach. And that's the minag. That you're allowed to, that's what he says, you're allowed to use, that's the minhag. You're allowed to go and use a measuring tool and pour it in someone else's kli, and it's not a problem. Okay. Din hava'at Shabbos dina kamo Yom Tov, and it's the same thing by Shabbos and by Yom Tov. Okay. And Mishnah Berurah points out, obviously we're talking about a case when both parties they're not exact. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to reach that line exactly and be, kechuta sara has to be exact. Because otherwise you can have issues of gezel. So we're assuming, everyone's doing each other a favor and you're just be'erech and everyone's mochel and that's fine. But, mutar lamar l'chavero malei li kli zeh u'lamachar nimdod oto. Now, so you're allowed to tell your friend, fill up this kli, and tomorrow we're going to measure. Okay. But you can't tell him, I need an exact amount. I say, give me exactly 1 liter of liquid or whatever the grain, whatever it is, of food, and nuts, whatever it is, and then I'll pay you tomorrow. You just tell him, just fill up the kli, and then however much it is, and then we know how much. The kli has let's say you take a random kli, a random bag, and there's no lines on it. So tomorrow you're going to fill up that same bag or that same kli, and then you'll see how much it was, and then you'll pay. So that's what you're allowed to tell him. You're allowed to say, fill up this random bag or kli, any kind of a vessel or cup, and tomorrow we're going to measure. So the Mishnah Berurah asks, how can you tell them we're going to measure tomorrow? Because we're not allowed to on Shabbos, we're not allowed to say we're going to do something after Shabbos, which is an outright Isser, even if it's an Isser Darabanan. So he says maybe because it's Orach Shabbos, you're allowed to. For Orach Shabbos, you're allowed to. Okay? It's not for tomorrow's sake, it's for today's sake. So that's why you're allowed to. Gimel, mutar lamar l'chaveru tenli beitzim ve'egozim b'minyan. You're allowed to tell your friend, give me a specific number. I want, give me 3 eggs, 3 nuts. Whatever the number is, that's mutter. You're not specifying any kind of money and value like that, so then it's okay. One more maybe. You're allowed to tell a friend, give me 4 or 5 eggs or pomegranates. As long as you don't mention the dollar amount and how much it is for each one, or per how much it costs per number. Velo schum, or perhaps it should read velo shem mida, velo schum minyan. Don't mention an exact mida. You're allowed to mention an exact number, but you can't mention an exact number when it has a defined dollar amount or shekel amount. Or you're making a whole cheshbon. You're going to say, or this could also be, so you can't make a whole, we're going to read it right now. What is this? Chomin Momar, can't make all these calculations. It has to be simple. You can't say, listen, I owe you for 50, give me 50 more, now I'm going to owe you for 100. It's too complicated. You have to keep it separate. Real simple on Shabbos. Just give me this amount and I'll pay you tomorrow. Or we'll take care of it tomorrow. Haga. V'chein b'schum damim eno asur elo b'chai. Gavna shomel etem mekach v'kach damim v'yel v'cha b'yadi kach v'kach aval b'lav hachi shari. So he says, basically, it's a repeat that as long as you're not making any v'chesh, it's mutter.
So you can say, give me $5 worth of this. No. That's what he said.
No, so you're allowed to say, give me $5 worth if you, I have to see exactly how to word it. I think you can say, give me $5 worth, without specifying, in order just so that he has an idea how much to give you. You can't make the whole cheshbon when it comes to a volume amount, right? Whether it's a number amount or a volume amount, you can't make this cheshbon issue. Aval belav hachi, without a cheshbon, an accounting of how much I owe you from before, and you're adding it to how much I owe you from today. But if you don't do that, then it's mutter. The afal gav, the asur haskir damim klal. You can't mention how much I'm going to be, how much it costs. Hainu b'davar she'en micha yadua. Aval b'davar she'yadua rak she'omer lokach kama tzarich shari. So if you have no idea how much it costs, so then you can't mention how much, a dollar amount, like you said. But if you do know how much it costs, everybody knows. Everyone has one price for all over, or it's all posted. Everyone knows how much it's going to cost. So then you're allowed to mention, just in order to get an idea how much to fill up your bag with. Instead of telling him, just give me, you can say, just like you're saying, give me 5 eggs, you can tell him, give me $5 worth. If you're not, so you can say, he says. But you can't come up to an exact amount. The alpha gav sheish machmirim b'davar zeh kvar pashat aminak b'medinos elu lahakel uchisvara niskeret. The Rama says even though the alpha is machmer, he says you're allowed to be